Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you Sunday morning. I will be pretty much stationary here, I think, so I'm in this. But no, it's a joy to be with you again and to share with you. It's been fun the past few days to do some stuff in the community and get to talk with some of you. And we are just thankful. More than anything, I want to express that at the beginning. Our thanks to this church. I believe this is my family's fourth time that we've visited Northwest Bible Church. The very first would have been nearly 13 years ago when we first were preparing to go to the field. We arrived in Thailand 12 years ago this December, and so we've been back a couple times since then on home assignments, and it's always such a warm welcome and an encouraging time here with all of you. So thank you for having us, allowing us to share this morning. My family is here. They're 3/4 of the rest of them are actually here in person as well. But the photo there, our son Matthias on the far right, he's a freshman university. I'll share a little bit more about the family in a bit. So he's not here with us. But the rest of us, my wife Jessica, and some of you know Jessica's parents, Tim and Judy Heath. I think he's comes over from time to time and is here with the church. And then our daughters, Abigail, between Jessica and I, and Chloe. And so we are serving with Things to Come mission in the country of Thailand. As I said, we've been there almost 12 years now when we first arrived in the country. And I did share a little bit the other evening about our theme verse there from Romans chapter 15, verse 21. I'll read it here if you can't see it. It says, "Those who have never been told of him will see, and those who have never heard will understand." And it comes at the end of the book of Romans when Paul's saying, hey, this is why I couldn't get there yet to Rome. I've got to go around all these places Christ isn't named. And then he quotes this verse actually from Isaiah. And it's, really the idea that it's being fulfilled as the Apostle Paul is going out to the nations and sharing the good news of God's grace in Jesus Christ. And yet today, like Thailand, there are places in the world that still don't have the good news of him. They've never heard the name of Jesus. And so that was one of the original motivators for us to go to that field to share the gospel with what was classified as an unreached people. And so we have been there now. And this verse, God's word, of course, continues to be encourager and motivator for us as we see that need. I do want to share a bit about where we are. And to start with that, here's a map of Southeast Asia. If you're familiar with that, I know I meet several individuals in churches, some of which who have served our country and were serving in Vietnam, so they're familiar with this part of the world. But the 11 or so nations of Southeast Asia, Thailand is here in the yellow, and we'll look at that a little bit more closely in a bit. Before we do that, though, I want to share sort of a broader region and start by talking about my family and Grace International School. Now, we are not officially doing ministry or called to minister at Grace International School, which is a missionary kids school there, but we are very involved there. One, in that this is my kids' this is where they've gone to school. Matthias graduated from there last year. Our girls are still enrolled there when we're in country. And this school ministers, why I put it here with Southeast Asia, is it ministers to a lot of families who are serving throughout Southeast Asia. And we often meet school teachers and different ones. In fact, just last week, we met a lady who was a retired school teacher. And she said, hey, I have an interest in teaching at an international school and wanted to know some more information about it. And so there's opportunities to serve in that way. But I want to share about the school. Really, this is an excuse to share about my family, just so you know us a little better and some of what their lives are like with that. Now, keep in mind, this is all last year's information. This year, we're here in the States. The girls are enrolled in high school in Leavenworth, where we're staying there with my in-laws. And as I mentioned, Matthias is in university. But last year, Chloe was in 8th grade. A photo of our school bus there. If you know, it's a truck with 2 rows in the back, kids going back and forth to school that way. Her basketball team, and they took first place in their JV tournament last year. And so that's a fun one. Here's Abigail from her 10th grade year. As I was looking through photos for Abigail, almost all of them was her with some friends. which is a very apt description of Abby. She has a close-knit group of friends there. This photo on the left is actually Abby and Chloe with their good friend in the middle who had just come back to Thailand from being in the U.S. on home assignment, and it's at the airport. And I think that's really a good description of missionary kid life. A lot of hellos and goodbyes. And so they were pretty happy in that photo because they hadn't seen her for many months. And then Matthias graduated last year from Grace International School. We had with everything as it was, we had similar lockdowns and closures and restrictions in Thailand as you did here. And so it was a drive-through graduation that we attended with him. But the school did a great job in the midst of everything. Earlier in the year, before everything was canceled, his class went on a senior trip to a waterfall, and I was able to take part in that as one of the adult sponsors, and so I'm thankful for that. But so we are involved with our kids there. This is a lot of their lives. Additionally, Jessica's serving at Grace International School as an admin assistant. This isn't what we are called there to do, but this was an opening that she could fill. And it actually really helps us as we send our kids to school and helps with the tuition costs. And she's there part-time throughout the week. I say that one of my wife's gifts is making order out of chaos. And that is one way that she's able to use that. Notice the very clean desk. Mine is the chaotic desk, all right? But hers is orderly and neat. And so that's one area. Part-time she's there. And of course she's active in the church and outreach ministries that we're doing as well, and I'll share about that some. Another big picture, sort of Southeast Asia ministry, is the Southeast Asia Grace Conference, or for short we say CGC, Southeast SEAGC. And so CGC 2018 was in Chiang Mai. In fact, probably the last time that we were here, I was asking for prayer. That was 4 years ago, so it would have been just before this conference. The coming, or maybe it was a year plus before this conference, but I know I was asking for prayer as we were preparing for this. This is a big deal that happens every 2 years in Southeast Asia. Normally I would be reporting on CGC, the fifth one in the Philippines, but it was pushed back because of COVID this last year. And so we'll go back 2 years. So what is this? What's this like? Well, it's a gathering of all the different nations. In fact, in Chiang Mai, we had 16 countries represented. So nearly every nation in Southeast Asia, plus quite a few others from around the world. 199 delegates from these different places. And so just the logistics of that, organizing airport pickup and arrivals and hotel, and I look back and I think this was really God's grace because our family, our co-missionaries that are serving in Chiang Mai as well, Genesis and Verna Marat, and then our small church worked all this together. And again, looking back, I think, I'm not sure how we pulled this off because there's a lot that goes into a conference of this size. So aside from God's grace, it wouldn't have been possible. But there were main sessions during that time, several challenges and encouragement as different missionaries, local national leaders, pastors and church leaders, and even different church members from across those nations come together to be challenged specifically in that area of mission and continuing to reach out in Southeast Asia in particular. Several workshops and classes we've had in the past, different pastors. In fact, not this one, but a previous one, Pastor Jim Shamaria from Shoreline. In fact, this Chiang Mai, Pastor Gary Hansen came over, as well as Pastor Todd James from Leavenworth. And so a lot of pastors from the States will come over on a team, share in those workshop times, and even some of our main speakers. Of course, stuff for children and youth. A lot of missionary kids, MKs, and other children from there come together. Times of worship. One of probably my favorite. The conference is all done in English. It's international, but there's opportunities to hear songs of praise sung in different languages, right? And so to me, it's just a little foretaste of heaven, right? Where every tongue, tribe, and nation is going to be praising God. And so that's what a really encouraging thing that is. Country reports, another part of the conference. We hear from, for example, this pastor, Pastor Rati, is in Cambodia, and he's sharing about the ministry there and the Khmer church, the Cambodian church that he is pastoring. And so it's encouraging to see this is how God's working in all these different areas. And then, of course, usually towards the end of the few days we're together, we've got a tour day, cultural show, shopping, sightseeing, all that type of stuff mixed in there. And so this is a sort of a plug of sorts in that if you are able, if you have the means and the desire to be a part of the CGC conference, usually if there's a team from the U.S., they'll go and it's a small part of a larger trip that's called the Asia Adventure, which is a couple weeks. And you get exposed to what God's doing in those different parts of the world. You do get to minister and be involved. You have special gifts in different areas, whatever it might be. But more than that is that chance to say, oh, wow, this is how the Lord is working in this country, in this place, and really in a concentrated form, especially the conference, and then to come back and be able to share that with your own church. There's nothing like that. So I encourage you to be a part of that. Lord willing, the next one will be in the Philippines, May 2021. However, we don't know yet. Real strict restrictions and lockdowns still in the Philippines, so we'll see what happens. One more area that's sort of a broader thing, and again, how we're involved in our ministry, Grace Theological Center for Mission, or GTCM. This is a training center for missionary candidates to go out into the field. And TCM, as you may or may not know, Things That Come Mission, has had more of a shift in recent years where we're sending out more missionaries as teams, which is different than a traditional support structure like my family would have. But these teams, most of which come from the Philippines, will go as a unit to their assigned field and be supported then as a team. And a lot of the support still coming from the States, but they're gaining more and more support from the Philippines itself. They have their own missions department and they're training them up. So it's really exciting to see how they're taking ownership of that in partnering with TCM USA. And part of that is the GTCM, this training time. And so this last time in 2018, again, another one was scheduled for this year. Didn't happen. But there were 12 students involved in that. The 12 students are there along with the director of the missions department, and then Ben Anderson, who's the international director of TCM USA. And then next to him, I'm sitting there. We were the teachers for the first week out of 8 weeks. Ben, I think, went on. He went on and taught other weeks as well. But I was able to teach with him about theology of mission and be with these students during that first week. Out of the 12, 7 of them applied to serve as missionaries with the mission board, TCM Mission Board in the Philippines. They were all accepted. 1 is now serving in her field, but the other 6 are waiting. Again, this sounds sort of like a broken record, right? But because of COVID things, they're not yet able to get out to their assigned fields. Even though they have the support and they're ready to go, they're waiting until those countries open up and they can advance. And so this is an exciting thing, how God's using this training and just the heart and the passion that the different students have to serve. Okay, so that's sort of a summary of Southeast Asia's bigger picture. Let's zoom in on Thailand a little bit. Again, Thailand's in yellow. We're up here in the north, in Chiang Mai. Bangkok, everybody usually, okay, you know the capital. We're a good, I don't know, what is 600 miles or so? It's about an hour by flight. It's from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, the largest city in the north, second largest city in the country. The whole country, about 69 million. The city in which we live, the greater metro area, about 1 million people or so. The language is Thai, right? Now that, I know that looks like somebody scribbled right on the PowerPoint, but that's their alphabet. We have a Bible on our display table here if you want to look at that gives you a bigger idea of that. And so when we first went, we knew we're going to have to speak the language of the people in order to communicate the heart issues of the gospel and their need for salvation and sin and so forth. And so while you could survive in Thailand with only speaking English, to really do what we're wanting to do, we believe it's necessary to know Thai. And so we've studied this. This reads, by the way, พระเยซูคริสต์คือองค์เจ้าชีวิต which means Jesus Christ is Lord, right? And that's the heart of what we're wanting to share with the people there, that Jesus is Lord. So as far as the religions, I've already mentioned Buddhism. That is the majority. It's not the national religion that it's required, but it is by far the majority. Anywhere from 88, that's a conservative estimate, up to 95% of the people are Buddhist. Now, most of those, it's more of a nominal Buddhism, right? We're Buddhist because we're Thai. We're Buddhist because my family is. This is what our country's religion is. But as far as going really, it's interesting, there's a strong sense of loyalty to it, but not a real depth in for a lot of individuals. There are some Muslims, especially down where Thailand touches Malaysia, and so you have the influence coming up from Malaysia, and 0.65% Christian. And that number represents what I've described, evangelical believers, right? It does not include Catholicism or other really cults that would call themselves Christian, true believers. And so I don't know if you like numbers. This doesn't do a lot for me. I've got to put this in concrete form, right? And so the best way for me to think of this is 0.65%. If we wanted one person here to stand up and say, I am a Christian, right, amongst all the rest, to represent that 0.65% for one person, we would need about 154 people gathered together this morning for just one of us. So I don't know if that helps you picture it better or not. But to me, it just re-emphasizes that reality that this is a people who have no news. They have not heard the good news of the gospel. So what are we doing to help that? A couple of our main ministries. One is Grace Church. And so Grace Church is still truly a church plant, that is to say, it's not yet established with national leadership. I think I shared this during the prayer breakfast yesterday. I'll share it again at the end as a prayer request. But that's our biggest need in this ministry, is to see a national leader step in and be a pastor, have the heart, the willingness, qualified, all of those things biblically you look at for elders to lead this ministry. And we've been praying for that. We've been looking at that through different avenues. Now, the good news is recently, I got in contact with a Thai man, a young guy that is on fire for the Lord. I mean, this was, first of all, how he found me and messaged me was sort of out of the blue. I got a message last June on Messenger, I think, and I don't know who this is. Thought maybe it was a former student or friend of a former student. Sometimes I'll get messages and no, who is this? How he found me still, even after telling me the story, I'm not quite sure. It's just a God thing how this worked out. He is really on fire for the Lord. He's been a believer, or at least in the church, for 10 years or so, but just in the last year, he would say he really came to faith and is following Jesus Christ. He's witnessing to his coworkers. He has a desire to witness to his family and talk to them. He wants to know more about the Bible, all these things. That's the good news. The bad news is he lives in the middle of Nebraska. This is a true story. This is my hometown, right, in the center of Nebraska. He goes to the church that I grew up in, moved over there as a high school student, got married to a girl from that area. They have 3 kids, and he's living there working for, I don't know how many, nearly 20 years, not quite, 17, 18 years. And he found me again. How he got in contact with me, it was a crazy thing, but he's just really excited. In fact, when my family was in Nebraska in August to visit my parents and other family there, I got together with him. I got to meet him face to face a couple times. And I thought, oh, this is a real deal. He really is excited about this. He even said to me, I want to go. I want to go back to Thailand and reach my people. He has this heart. In fact, he went home and told his wife that, and she wasn't too sure about that immediate move back. She said, well, let's just wait a little bit. But he and I have been talking, and so since I saw him in August, I said, hey, Don, his name is Don. I said, Don, would you like to continue meeting just online? We can talk once a week, pray together, do a Bible study. He goes, oh yeah, I'd be excited about that. He was right for it. I said, okay, what time's good for you? He's got 3 little kids, the evenings are busy and all that. He goes, well, probably in the morning before I go to work. He goes, is 6 a.m. okay? I'm like, hey, that is great. I mean, the fact that he is excited enough about his walk with the Lord and his desire to grow in Christ and serve him, that he's willing to meet and do that. So I don't know, if nothing else, I think, well, maybe the Lord gave me this as an encouragement that there's yet hope for the church there back in Chiang Mai, that we can find another individual like that there who would be willing to go forward. Or maybe Don and his family will move. I don't know. No, we'll see. But about this church, that is our biggest prayer for national leadership. A couple things, just some highlights of our ministries there. Every year, this was last Christmas, so almost a year ago now, but every year we make a big deal out of Christmas. As an outreach of the church, from the beginning we want the church to be mission-minded, to think of not just coming and worshiping and having a good time together, but there's others out there that need to know this good news of Jesus. And so Christmas is one of those things within Thailand that is big as far as the commercialism part of it, right? You go to the shopping malls, they're playing Christmas music. You've got Santa Claus, presents, even sales. All the stores have sales. You hear jingle bells and all this. But when you ask your average Thai person, well, what is this holiday really all about? What's the origin of it? They're a little fuzzy on the details, right? And so what an opportunity then for us to invite people to go together, celebration. They're already in this festive mood because of all these things, and it's leading up to New Year's, which is huge. And we have gift exchange and singing and all these fun things, games. But then we have an opportunity to share as well the good news of Jesus, not only coming and being born, living, dying, coming to life again. So we use that as an outreach. We've seen contact with different families and are continuing to do that. One more recent thing the church was involved in is right before my family came back to the States. Like here, families and people have been affected with everything with COVID, some loss of income and so forth. And so the church put together some small care bags that contained some food staples and a gospel tract. We handed them out in the community after Sunday service and encouraged the members to take those home, hand them out to the rest of, hand them out to their neighbors and so forth where they live, just as a small way to show the love of Jesus in a very tangible way, what this means. And so that's that. Oh, one more collection of photos, I guess. Fellowship time. Most of the photos of our group together were eating, which after being here 2 or 3 days this time, I think you guys are familiar with eating good food, right? We don't have the egg and breakfast casseroles or French toast casseroles, but we do have a lot of good Thai food together. Every Sunday after the service, we will eat a meal together. Birthdays are always celebrated, coffee time together, all these different things. So some wonderful times around food to continue to get to know one another and really build up that community. For the Thai person, again, remember, to be Thai is to be Buddhist. And so they come out of Buddhism, become a Christian, and suddenly part of what happens is, well, how am I still Thai, right? And how am I still relating? And while we never discouraged connections with family and friends, to a certain degree, they don't have that same connection now that they're Christians. And so how critical it is for them to have a new community, a new society, and that's what the church is, right? Biblically, that's what we're called to do. And so a lot of that time together helps with that process. Another main ministry we have is called House of Grace. And so a little backstory on this. 2 of the members that attend the church, they live in another area that's different from where the church meets. And really an area that is, again, not a lot of witness for Christ. An area where it's far enough from the city where there's many children and young people that want to learn English, but the opportunities aren't there in their immediate community. And so the idea was, if we started an English center, sort of as an outreach there, that we'd see the response of children and teenagers coming into this. And so 2 years ago now, I guess it was, a little over 2 years ago, this began. And some photos here of our family involved with this. Again, this is a co-effort with our missionary, co-missionaries, the Marats. And so they're a part of this. In fact, this English Center was, because it's a school, when all the schools closed down, this was also closed. And they've just reopened in the last month or so. And even then, recent correspondence from Genesis, he said that a lot of the kids are still sort of scared to come back yet. Some of the families aren't sending them back to the classes yet. But you can see some photos here of not only children, but young people. The hope and goal is that eventually we can reach entire families there, right? And again, sort of a model that we see in Scripture of family conversion. I think of like the Philippian jailer in Acts 17. The entire family came to Christ, and we know that is true often of different ones in Thailand. When the father, the mother, when the parents come, the children will follow. In fact, we know a lot of people, sort of an aside here, but just to give you a more picture of the window of the culture, I guess, we know a lot of individuals who, even as adults, they are reluctant to come to Christ or to really even explore that because, well, that would dishonor mom and dad. And so they're adults at 50 some years old, and mom and dad are still living, and they feel like they can't betray them and leave Buddhism. And so if we can see an entire family come to Christ, and of course that out of families, you see the beginnings of a church being built. And that's really the desire. This is just in the beginning stages here with this ministry, so it's not there yet, but that's our prayer as we continue to teach English and hopefully attract. Again, Christmas celebrations with this group as well. In this larger photo here, you can see not only children and young people, but their parents, grandparents, different ones in the community. A lot of fun, and just another opportunity to share the gospel with the people there. So those are a couple of the main ministries our family's involved in. How you can pray for us, as I already mentioned, the big thing is that Thai leadership within the church. We are exploring different avenues for that. Right now, anyone in the church, we don't see the right individual that would be called in that position, but we're looking at other ways that we can go about finding a person that could lead that. We believe that's really important, and it would allow then us as missionaries to step out of the way and encourage that leader. As I just mentioned, the House of Grace English classes, if you would pray that would develop and grow beyond the children and youth, keep them, yes, of course, but to reach the parents. A lot of times adults are a little more reluctant to come at first. They want to send their kids to learn English because this will be good for them, but adults may be a little bashful of that at first. So praying for that ministry to go forward, that it would be another church plant in the future. If you would pray for our kids, their education and just life here during home assignment. I mentioned already, Matthias is at Central Washington University in Ellensburg and seems to be adjusting well for the most part. Probably could use some encouragement because with the classes all being online, he had one that was meeting in person, and then we found out that it's going to move online soon, if it hasn't already. And so, I think, praying for him in that time there. And then our girls, they're both enrolled in high school in Leavenworth. Those classes are also online, and so praying for them in not only their school, but also friendships during this time in the States. We do plan to return in January. That's our plan A. However, because of quarantine requirements and the fact that we could not self-quarantine in our own home, we'd have to do it in a government facility, which then is very cost prohibitive. Lots of money for the four of us to do that. We're considering a plan B, which would put us back in Thailand probably sometime after the second semester school-wise in May. We're not sure yet. We're still praying. We need to make some decisions soon about that. So if you just pray for wisdom in that. One of the verses that I like, again, this ties in this idea of this is our mission together, right? It's not just the missionaries that go, but it is the church's mission that God has his church for. And 2 Corinthians says this, you also must help us by prayer so that many will give thanks on our behalf for the blessing granted us through the prayers of many. And so I just love that. This reminder, Paul wrote it to the Corinthians, but I can share it with you here at Northwest Bible Church that your prayers are a part of that ministry in Thailand. And I firmly believe biblically that those who go, those who stay, pray, give, however it is, partner with those who go, there's equal reward and equal blessing for everyone that's involved. This is our mission. And so we want to just thank you for that. If you want to, again, thank you for partnering, praying for us. You want more information? The website, we have a sign-up sheet if you don't already receive. I'm trying to send out those email blasts more regularly. And then every once in a while, the old, what do we call that? Oh yeah, post office, where we send those things. But the email, there's our email addresses. And also we're on Facebook if we're not already friends on there. We can be in real life. No. Okay, so I've got a couple minutes left, which I left. If there's any questions, maybe we can do that. Yeah.
Now, the government there is probably not hostile, I would imagine, towards Christianity. How do they just don't, what is their take on it as far as the government?
Okay, so I'll repeat it just for the mic since it's being recorded, but the question was about the government. What is their take on Christianity? Yeah, you're right. There's not a national religion. There's freedom of religion. And so as believers, we have the freedom to share the gospel, evangelize, plant churches. We're recognized, even our visas, excuse me, our visas through the Department of Religious Affairs. And there's other religions included in that, but Christianity is one. We're recognized as having a missionary visa of sorts. And so, yeah, we don't face that hostility. Probably more the I wouldn't call it hostility, but the bigger obstacle to us doing the work there is just what I've already mentioned, the societal family pressure to remain Buddhist. No punishment for becoming a Christian, but there's the honor shame culture, and a lot of that plays into it. Yeah.
Do you speak Thai?
Do we speak Thai? Yes. My wife and I both studied, and so full time when we arrived, and so we're conversational. I do on Sundays my preaching and teaching. I do in Thai. Bible studies, we do that in Thai, and so.
How difficult was that to learn?
I don't know. Was it 3 or 4 hours? How difficult? It's a difficult language, especially the written form. Conversational is one thing, but then, yeah, we studied full time together for about 8 months, and then Jessica, with family obligations, the kids were still little, stepped out. Then I continued on mostly to study more vocab that we would encounter in teaching and preaching the Bible. There's some different vocab and stuff with that. Altogether, 1.5 years, 2 years on and off, by the time I added it all up. And we're still learning. I mean, I don't know if you're ever completely fluent in another language when you learn it as an adult. But yeah, it's not an easy one, but God's helped us with it. So, yeah. Another question, Tina?
Okay, so have you been in that town that you're in for the last 12 years?
Yes, we've been in Chiang Mai, and we've done other ministries within that. We had at one point a university ministry with students that we had going, and then different things happened and it lost momentum, and that's where we've been located. And so we're primarily in Chiang Mai, but the ministries are sort of around. Yeah. Okay, any more questions? No? All right. Thank you so much.